Hey church, Pastor Adam Cooter here. It is great to be back with you. It is day 11 in the Red Letter Challenge. It feels like we just started this thing yesterday, but it's amazing how God's been doing great things through this challenge. And I hope God's been doing great things with you too. In today's Red Letter Challenge, in this week of being, as I said, we're in day 11. And today we're talking about celebrating the Lord. And our theme verse for today, if I can pull it out, our theme verse for today is, let us eat and celebrate. That's straight out of Luke chapter 15, verse 23. And I love that. Let us eat and celebrate. And a lot of times I think for people of the church, sometimes we forget about that, how we were called to celebrate. And, I think about how I've gotten the opportunities to go and visit different congregations and see how they worship. And sometimes I have to do it online, but I love to see how the different ways that people celebrate the Lord. And usually it's when I take a staycation or something like that, we go and experience another congregation. And we've seen everything from churches with the smells and the bells to churches to the worship's almost like a rave scene with all sorts of electronic music, and I love it. I think it's so neat to see how people celebrate the Lord. I remember listening to one pastor talking about taking the Sabbath, and how one day a week we're supposed to take a moment and it's supposed to be completely separate, as we've talked about, where you just put everything aside and you take your Sabbath that day, and you not only celebrate the Lord, but you find rest in the Lord. But as he taught that, he also talked about how the holidays that the Jewish festivals they have. You hear about in the Old Testament, and he said it was almost like God was telling his people to stop and party. And I love that. How the idea of God telling his people, not only do you need to take a break out of the normal week, month, or year and really celebrate, but the fact that God might want us to actually party. And that's kind of, for a lot of people, could be an alien concept, because we think we're supposed to be in the world but not of the world. And while that's true, I completely agree. I think there's also something to be said about celebrating the Lord. And our celebrations can look different from one another. Coming from the music industry, I think there's a lot of ways we can celebrate, but still don't look like the world. And there's a lot of cool stuff that God can do. Pastor Zender, he also writes in the big letters, I don't have to put my glasses on for this, he says, we ought to attract people to the church, quite literally, by the fun there is in being a Christian. What a weird concept. The idea of attracting people to the church, quite literally, by the fun there is in being a Christian. I know a lot of the world might not think that being a Christian is a whole lot of fun. Yeah, maybe you have to give up some stuff and abuse of the body, but the truth is that being a Christian is a blast. Walking with the Lord is a blast. There's an old story about Jesus walking along the beach, and he's just kind of looking at the sand, kind of looking down as he's walking along, and the disciples are off kind of on the side, and they're having a mudslinging fight with wet sand. And they're hitting each other back and forth, and all of a sudden, one of the people kind of has some really bad aim, and they hit Jesus right in the face with this big old mud pile. And Jesus, he starts to wipe the mud off of his face, or the wet sand, and kind of packs it down into a ball. And all of a sudden, he just kind of takes it and wings it back at the disciples, and he joins in the fun. And that's one of the things, not that I look forward to anybody hitting me in the face with a big old pile of wet sand, but I think God calls us to have fun. Well, I know God calls us to fun and to celebrate. How many times in the Psalms do we hear about people lifting up their voices and playing the lyre and the harp? Modern days, that would probably be the guitar, the keyboard, drums, whatever have you. But just celebrating God, celebrating all the great stuff that He's done for us. There's that great scene, when David brings the ark back into Israel, and David goes down to meet him, and he's so stoked that the ark is back, and he's just dancing around, whirl, and his wife, she sees him dancing, and she's like, what is he doing? He's going to make us all look like a bunch of idiots. And he goes down and says, you need to knock it off. And David says, I'll be all the more embarrassing for the Lord because I want to party him. And I love that picture. That somebody would want to celebrate the Lord and dance and essentially party to celebrate. And then what a great calling, that we have a God who loves us so much that he would invite us to come and not just be somber, but to come and celebrate. And that's what worship should be, really. Worship should be a celebration. As we are being in Christ, part of that being with Christ and being in Christ, this week of being, is remembering that we get to celebrate all that Christ has done for us. Easter is a celebration. Christmas is a celebration. Pentecost is a celebration. All those high church holidays, they are celebrations. Every Sunday morning for us should be a celebration. In fact, I would go to far as say every day of the week that we have to be in Christ should be a celebration. Again, not like the world does, but that doesn't mean that's not fun. It's not partying. And so remember, you are called to celebrate, to rejoice in the Lord, for he is good, and his mercies are new every morning. Might you celebrate that. Find joy in worshiping, and may your joy be so infectious that the rest of the world might want to come enjoy and join you in that celebration. Brothers and sisters, we've got a great God. And may you hold on to this as we continue on with this week of being in this red letter challenge. May that joy as you are being in Christ infect others. And may you always remember that wherever you go and whatever you do, you are on the King's business. God bless you all, everybody. We'll see you next time.